This is Prepared and Safe, a Chris 6 News Hurricane Special with meteorologists Dale Nelson, Sharon Ray, Tom Harris, and Bill Alexander. Prepared and Safe is proudly brought to you by Window World and CCAC.
Made landfall. It is now heading north.
30 inches of rain.
Very devastating and dangerous.
Winds are definitely picking up.
Street lights are out.
We now have a Category 4 hurricane.
So these are our friends, families, neighbors.
Because that was real dangerous.
We're kind of expecting the worst.
Total devastation.
Be prepared ahead of time.
Having that family plan,
it's just not survivable.
You can be seriously injured or killed.
Now is the time to get ready.
Hello, I'm meteorologist Dale Nelson.
And I'm meteorologist Sharon Ray.
And welcome to the Chris 6 2020 Hurricane Special.
Well, 2020 hurricane season has already gotten off to a fast start, and that reminds us to be prepared early.
That's right. You don't want to get caught in a position where we go on the air and tell people there's a storm out there and it's headed this way and the threat is real. That gives you that sinking feeling that you haven't prepared early and often.
And we know from past experiences that no two storms are alike.
That's exactly correct, Sharon. And of course, with Hurricane Celia, the 50-year anniversary, August 3rd, 1970, most folks that lived in the area at the time didn't feel like they needed to evacuate because the storm was supposed to come in with about 100-mile-an-hour winds. They got the warning that morning around 10 a.m. and the hurricane hit 4:30 that afternoon with wind gusts in the area of 180 miles an hour. I don't know of anybody that I talked to that stayed for that storm that didn't fear for their lives and wish that they had been better prepared.
And we know the forecast can change. In fact, with Harvey in 2017, we saw how fast it intensified with the rapid intensification.
That's right, and that storm was so devastating to the Rockport and Port Aransas area. So that's why you need to be prepared, have a plan, and don't get caught in the middle. And all of that information that you need to know about is in our Hurricane Special, which is coming up right now.
Hurricanes are potentially life-changing events. They can have a significant impact on your life, on your property, and it's not something that you can delay until the last minute.
I've walked the ground in past events and seen entire communities annihilated.
We need to inform people that come to the coastline and decide to live here what the problem is.
So you can get winds 100 miles inland that are hurricane force.
You're putting yourself and your family at great risk if you wait till the hurricane's on your doorstep.
It's just not survivable. And even if it were, the misery and suffering that you would endure for days, it's just not worth it.
And most of our major hurricanes hit Texas in August, so that's not unusual. But take the time now. Take from past experience the potential life-changing event that a hurricane is. Just take these storms seriously. Get prepared while you have the time.
When a watch or warning goes into effect, it is important to know what the difference is and how a storm forms. A watch means storm conditions are possible and it could reach your coastal area within 48 hours. A warning means storm conditions are expected to move into your area within 36 hours and it's time to take action.
We can get 20 inches of rain out of a very, very weak tropical system. That can cause massive destruction, just as much as a Category 3 or Category 4 hurricanes.
Hurricanes are ranked by category from 1 to 5. Category 1 is the weakest. Winds can range between 74 to 95 miles an hour. With a Category 2 storm, you can expect extreme winds and extensive damage. A Cat 3 storm will have winds between 111 and 129 miles per hour, while a Category 4 storm, you are looking at catastrophic damage. The worst of the storms is a Category 5. Winds are more than 156 miles an hour, and you're looking at a devastating situation.
And the angle that it attacks the coast is key. If the hurricane were to come straight on in, then that right quadrant is where the highest winds and water are.
If you shut your eyes and envision a hurricane, what do you see? You see palm trees, you see rain moving sideways. You don't see the ocean coming inland.
Contrary to popular belief, wind is not the biggest killer in a hurricane. It is often water, and more often than not, it is storm surge.
The worst I've ever seen as far as storm surge was Katrina. We measured over 28 feet of ocean rise.
90% of fatalities in tropical systems is because the water is not the wind. So you have to get away from the water and then make sure you just kind of hide from the wind.
That's where the new emphasis on hurricane awareness is headed. So first of all, let's talk about what storm surge is.
A storm surge is just the force of the wind pushing the ocean onto the land. And so it just pushes the water inland where it normally does not go.
Usually the people in the first row of homes along the beach will have no problem being convinced that the ocean might invade their home.
Residents that live maybe a further inland might not realize that they could be impacted by surge. So it's so important to take time now to look at potential storm surge flood maps that are out for this area.
So when people see that, hopefully that convinces them that the emergency managers are telling them to evacuate for a really good reason.
Storm surge graphics are now being used to help people understand how bad the storm surge is going to be in terms of how high the water is going to get at any given coastal location.
And so this graphic accomplishes that. It tells you how deep the water could be and how far inland the water could go.
Even though it rarely happens in any given storm, you must prepare for the worst case scenario.
And I was looking through the damage as usual, and the husband and wife who owned the residence where I was at came up to me. They had looked at our forecast and made a conscious decision to get out, and it probably saved their life. And it's those little moments in time that drive you and propel you to make it just a little bit better.
Know your risk, right? So if you're right on the coast, if you're out on the barrier islands, you know you're going to get the storm surge, so you have to have a place to go.
Planning out an evacuation route is a vital part of hurricane planning. You must decide if you are staying or leaving before there is a storm in the Gulf.
Where are you going to go and how are you going to get there? Talk about this with your family. Think about the places that you might go and stay, especially during these difficult, challenging times that we're going through now, where it may take some more planning than you're normally used to.
If a mandatory evacuation order is issued for your area, you will have a potentially life-changing decision to make. Remember, if you live along the coast, do not take I-35 or Highway 77. You must find a way to get inland to I-37 away from the coast. It is always a good idea to know evacuation routes in case a mandatory order is issued for your area, or if you just choose not to ride out the storm at home. If you evacuate the area, plan to leave early and prepare for a longer than expected drive time. TxDOT will open hurricane evacuation lanes to help traffic keep moving. You will need to take food, water, medication, gas, and anything you cannot afford to lose. Once you leave the area, wait for the all clear from city emergency officials before attempting to return to your home. In order to return, you may be asked to provide proof of where you live. You can do that by having your driver's license or utility bill. For a look at the evacuation maps, check out KRAS6news.com or KZTV10.com.
Coming up, preparing your home for a hurricane. Find out what you need to do after the break. Stay with us.
You're watching Prepared and Safe, a Chris 6 News Hurricane Special, brought to you by Window World and CCAC.
Whether you decide to stay or leave during a hurricane or tropical storm, preparation and planning are vital. There are certain items that you just can't live without. The first stop is the food aisle. It is recommended that you have at least 7 days worth of food, and it should be non-perishable. Water is a must before and after the storm. Now, it is recommended that you have at least 1 gallon of water per day for each person in your household. And don't forget about your pets. They're also going to need an ample supply of food and water and any other pet care items that you may need. Don't forget you're likely going to need a manual can opener. A first aid kit is also a good idea. You're also going to want to stock up on your prescriptions and any specialty items you may need for the elderly and babies. Make sure you don't forget the batteries. Also, another good idea is an emergency weather radio You're also going to need a flashlight.
And we can't forget about our other family members, our pets. My dog Preston is very important to me, and there are plenty of steps you and I can take to keep our pets safe through a storm. Make sure you have a carrier for each animal. If your pet is not used to traveling in a carrier, do a travel trial run. Label each carrier with your contact information and the name of the pet inside. Be sure to look for pet-friendly lodging since many hotels do not allow animals. Create a pet evacuation kit so that everything they need is packed and ready to go. Make sure your pet is up to date on all vaccinations. You'll likely be able to keep your animals with you, but in the event that they are boarded at a shelter, your animal must be current on all vaccinations. Have your pet microchipped. A tiny microchip is injected under the animal's skin where it remains for the rest of your pet's life. In case you and your pet get separated, in order to be reunited with your pet, you must have current ID on your pet. Create an identification file for your pet for each one of them. The file should include current photographs of your pet, microchip ID number, adoption papers, a written description of your pet, a description of distinctive markings, medications, vaccination history, and place the file in a waterproof folder or a Ziploc bag. Here's Bill Alexander with tips on how to prepare your boat and other pertinent information.
As we learned from Hurricane Harvey, an area can be without power for several days or even weeks. That's why it's important to have cash on hand. ATM machines may be down and banks closed. Make sure you have copies of important documents like your insurance and medical records. You'll also need your bank account information, credit card numbers, and your Social Security card. And if you own a boat, you are responsible for finding a safe location on land to store it. And don't wait until the storm is just hours away. If you leave your boat in the city marina, you will be responsible for any damage done by your vessel. Make sure you have your boat's registration, engine numbers, and description. Take a picture of it. You may need that for your insurance purposes.
Hurricane season is here. Most coastal Bend residents know what kind of destruction a hurricane can cause, and that's why we must do everything we can to prepare.
The effect of Hurricane Harvey, look at that power pole.
We lost radios, we've lost the internet, we lost local phone service.
We have no power.
It's been hot. We all had to sleep in the car just for AC.
Third day with no power.
You don't have power for weeks. I mean, that is something that we don't really think about. And that's what we have to think about when it comes to after a hurricane. And that's why you have to be ready, have to be prepared.
Crews with AEP Texas practice to make sure everyone knows their role during a disaster, to make sure people are without power for as short a time as possible.
We also participate in something called mutual assistance. So if there is a natural disaster or a storm in another state, sometimes our crews go there to help restore power for their customers. And in turn, during a hurricane, many times crews come here and we welcome them with open arms because that's what it's going to take to get the power up and running for a city if we were to lose power on a large scale during a hurricane.
With Hurricane Harvey, we saw several downed power lines all over the coastal bend. Here is some advice on what to do after the storm makes landfall.
Well, after a storm, immediately we're going to ask everyone, stay safe. Safety is the first priority. During a power outage, we always ask people prepare for a hurricane, build an emergency kit.
Do whatever you can to strengthen your home to make it as safe as it can be and strong as it can be.
Plants, lawn furniture, and even flagpoles could become projectiles during a storm. That's why all unsecured items need to be moved inside or anchored down. Protect your windows. Taping windows will not prevent them from breaking and is a very bad idea. You need to have window covers for every opening. The easiest and cheapest way is plywood that is at least 5/8 of an inch thick, but 3/4 of an inch is better. Another option to consider is hurricane windows, which basically means you don't have to cover them. You should also trim large tree limbs around and above your home. Limbs can damage roofs when broken during a storm. If mandatory evacuation orders are issued, before you leave, turn off your water, gas, and electricity, and clean out your refrigerator. If the power goes out, perishables like milk and meat will spoil before you return home. It's also a good idea to take pictures of your valuables, especially anything you want insurance to be replaced if it's damaged in the storm. To protect smaller valuables, put them in a plastic watertight bag. Same goes for anything irreplaceable like photographs and birth certificates. If you choose to stay, make sure you have plenty of fresh water for drinking and flushing. Fill your bathtub and any pots and pans with water. Turn your refrigerator to the coldest setting. This is going to help your food stay fresher longer should the power go out. If you do not evacuate, here's some things you need to keep in mind. If a hurricane ends up hitting your area, stay away from all of your home's windows and doors. Stay in a secure area like a closet or bathroom that is located in the center of your home on the lowest floor. Or close all the bedroom doors and stay in the hallway. Cover your heads with a mattress to block any flying debris during the storm. Keep in mind that insurance coverage cannot be purchased once a storm enters the Gulf of Mexico.
Insurance is something that you cannot get at the last minute. So once a storm develops and it moves into the Gulf, you cannot update your insurance policy. And it's so important to know the types of policies that you need, and you need to sit down, make an appointment with your insurance agent and go over those things now before the season begins.
Bottom line, it's good to review your insurance coverage with your agent well before a storm threatens the coastal bend. This year marks the 50th anniversary of Hurricane Celia making a direct hit on Corpus Christi. Up next, we'll have a look at the damage the storm caused. Stay with us.
You're watching Prepared and Safe, a Chris 6 News Hurricane Special, brought to you by Window World and CCAC.
It's the 50th anniversary of Hurricane Celia, the costliest storm in Corpus Christi history.
Well, I was at the Hurricane Center at that time issuing the warnings, and the thing that I remember about Celia, it strengthened quite rapidly just before making landfall.
Celia was a Category 3 storm when she made landfall on that fateful afternoon of August 3rd, 1970. It was the only time in the recorded history of Corpus Christi that the eye of a storm passed over the city, producing the strongest wind gust ever recorded here at 161 miles per hour. The highest wind gust in the area reached 180 miles an hour. Most people that were here for the storm feared for their lives.
When that storm moved into the Gulf of Mexico, it was just a tropical depression, but over the course of a couple of days, the storm intensified, and in the last 15 hours before landfall, rapidly intensified, very similar to Harvey.
Celia killed 15 people in South Texas. The storm ended up causing more than $500 million in damage. In today's dollars, that would come out to nearly $3 billion. The most severe damage was in Corpus Christi, Aransas Pass, Portland, and Robstown.
That storm was very devastating. It was primarily the wind impacts that caused the most damage. It was an unusual storm in that the winds occurred, the strongest winds were documented on the western part of the eye wall.
70% of all homes and businesses in Corpus Christi were damaged by Celia. About 90% of the buildings in the downtown area were damaged to some degree. Because of the rapid intensification, the highest storm surge only reached 9 feet.
Imagine losing everything, losing your home and all of your belongings. Take from past experience the potential life-changing event that a hurricane is. Just take these storms seriously. Get prepared while you have the time.
Expected to strengthen, unfortunately, and it's expected to come pretty close to Corpus Christi.
I don't know if old Harvey has made landfall yet, but it looks like it's pretty darn close.
This is a Cat 4. We now have a Category 4 hurricane.
Hurricane Harvey was another storm that made landfall in the coastal bend nearly 3 years ago. Harvey, a major Category 4 hurricane, came ashore on the northern end of San Jose Island, about 5 miles east of Rockport. Many residents are still trying to recover from the storm. Harvey also caused catastrophic flooding and numerous deaths in the Houston area of southeast Texas. It is tied with 2005's Hurricane Katrina as the costliest tropical cyclone on record, inflicting $125 billion in damage. Nearly every structure in Port Aransas was damaged, while in Rockport, entire blocks were destroyed by the eye of the storm. Harvey left a trail of destruction across the coastal bend that hadn't been seen since Hurricane Allen in 1980.
There is more hurricane information coming up after the break.
You're watching Prepared and Safe, a Chris 6 News Hurricane Special, brought to you by Window World and CCAC.
Tom Harris joins us now with some other information you need to be aware of after the storm hits.
After the storm has passed, this is what you need to do. Wait until an area is declared safe before re-entering. Watch Chris 6 or check out our website, christv.com, and Chris 6 social media pages, or listen to NOAA Weather Radio. Watch for flooded roads, and if you encounter one, make sure you turn around and don't drown. Stay on firm ground as standing water may be electrically charged from power lines, and watch for poisonous snakes. Once you're home, check all of your appliances for damage along with gas, water, and electrical lines. Never use candles or other open flames indoors. Instead, use a flashlight to inspect for damage. Make sure officials say it's safe to use tap water before drinking or preparing food. If you have a generator, make sure you follow the standard electrical code and follow the owner's manual from the manufacturer to avoid carbon monoxide poisoning and other hazards.
Here's the 2020 hurricane season forecast for the Atlantic, Caribbean, and Gulf of Mexico. We anticipate another above-normal year with 13 to 19 named storms, including 6 to 10 hurricanes, 3 to 6 of which will be Category 3, 4, or 5. There is always a lot of uncertainty, so prepare as though we are going to get hit.
There's many different steps that you have to take to get ready for a storm. It's not just a quick preparedness action.
Heed the warnings.
Find out your evacuation zone, visit your insurance agent, buy supplies, strengthen your home.
We know this is a lot of information, but don't worry. Social media sites like the Chris 6 Facebook page give you access to this information anytime you need it.
You really should consider downloading our mobile weather app. We have set up a link on our websites, christv.com and kztv10.com. The mobile weather app is free, and it has up-to-the-minute accurate information on what is happening in our area.
And for those folks who have Roku, Amazon, Apple TV, and Chromecast, make sure you download the Chris 6 News app. This hurricane special is available on demand.
Thank you for watching.
Prepared and Safe is a presentation of Chris 6 News and is brought to you by Window World and CCAC. Watch it again anytime on christv.com or with the Chris 6 News app on your favorite devices.